This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RV Radio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Hi, hello, and welcome to Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. This is the High Stakes, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown presented by the FFPC right here on the FFPC YouTube channel and the FFPC socials. My name is Eric Balkman. You know me from the Better Sports Network, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. I want to remind you that while we are into week 12 with the FFPC, which is known for season-long fantasy football, don't forget about the FFPC Weekly Challenge. The Thursday Challenge and the Sunday Challenge are live right now. If you want to participate in these contests, there is no draft. There is no salary cap. You just pick 10 players or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses, only one player per NFL team. So if you want to play with Patrick Mahomes, you cannot have Travis Kelce. If you want Jalen Hurts, you cannot have Saquon Barkley. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests. Play now at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which I will give you the live schedule of the FFPC family of podcasts coming up at the end of this show of what we have going on for you both Thursday and Friday of this week. Tonight, I want to welcome in our guests. They currently stand 44th place overall in the FFPC main event with their eyes on $1 million grand prize. And you say, Balky, we've had these people on before. They're really good in the regular season. They don't know how to get it done when it counts, when the 6 and 7 figure grand prizes are on the line. Well, let me tell you something. These guys have already done it. Less than 4 years ago, they won the 2021 FPC and the $500,000 grand prize that came with it. And now only 43 teams separate them from winning $1 million in the FFPC main event this year. Please welcome into the show, Mr. Brady David and Mr. Donny Andrews. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the show.
How you doing? Yeah, thanks for having us.
I want to. So there's a lot of ways I can take this, right, to start off the show, but I'm going to take it. And Brady, I'm going to throw it to you. $500K 4 years ago. Just tell the listeners, lie to us. You spent it wisely.
I would say I kind of did. I mean, I didn't save it like I probably should have, but we put in a nice little patio, outdoor TV, fire pit area, and it helped pay for an engagement ring to my now wife. So it came in at a very clutch time because when we won, I looked over because Donny was watching or over at our house watching with us, and I just looked over and I said, "Name your price."
So, well, I mean, listen, like, yeah, granted, what you spent it on probably is not the greatest investment in the world, but when you invest into your home, you invest into an outdoor patio, you invest into your wife. Certainly, these are things that keep on giving, for sure. Donny, when I'll ask you the same question here, when you think about looking back on this, 3.5 years ago, did you feel like you spent the money in a way that you're happy with now in 2025?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think unlike Brady, I didn't have too many big purchases with it, so I still have a decent chunk of it that kind of saving for a rainy day, pay off the house, just let it grow, continue the smart stuff. Let it grow, continue to gain interest, and my big purchase will be coming at some point. But I did joke, I remember, to friends of mine that the first thing I did when I won all of that was I turned the heat up in my house to like 72.
And you live in the Northeast part of the country, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, we're Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I get it. Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland's all about.
That's right.
At least that's what Wedding Crashers told me.
Yeah.
So Donny, I'll throw this to you here, and Brady, I want to get your input on this. You know, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but you guys have been to the mountaintop, right? You beat thousands of other teams in the FPC in 2021. You're 44th overall in the main event right now. Do you feel like getting to that mountaintop and winning the grand prize, Donny, do you think that's given you more of a respect of what it takes to get up there? Or do you feel like, God, we did it once, why can't we do it again? How do you feel about being top 50 this late in the season for $1 million grand prize?
Yeah, I think that it's a little humbling. I think the first go around, that was literally one of the first teams. We only had one team, so you kind of get hit right away and you win the big prize. And coming back over the last couple of years and trying it again and starting to do the main event, you start realizing how difficult it is to actually get up there and how difficult it is to not only get into the 3-week sprint afterwards, but then once that 3-week sprint starts, then everything resets and it's back down to zero and you kind of got to do it all over again. So it's fun. It's I think that we're excited about having a team that's really good and 44th overall, and a couple other teams of ours that are in the hunt as well.
Yeah.
But we know that the job's not done yet. We still, like you said, once we get into that 3-week sprint, everything resets, and we got to make sure that we have a good team starting week 15 as well.
Brady, does it feel like, I mean, what's the feeling like when you've already won the whole thing and you're seeing these teams, in a contest that features thousands of teams? You got a 44th overall, you got some other teams up there. What's that feeling like knowing that you've already done it, but then you see these teams in contention to try to not only capture that cash, but capture that feeling again here?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that once you taste it, you want to taste it again. I think I can't remember for sure, but I believe the year after we won is when the prize went from 500 to 1 million. So that's part of it. Is like, we had the 500, now we want to try to get the 1 million. But it's just it's fun to be in the mix. It's it's a fun sweat for 3 weeks. It comes down to late on Sunday, week 17. I mean, last year we were, I think it was around like 3 o'clock or the 1 o'clock games. We got all the way up to like 3rd or 4th, and then things fell apart. We ended around like 25th, but it's fun to be in it for sure.
I should ask this too. When we talk about being in the mix and being right up there and stuff, I feel like you have a new respect for this. You have a new respect for how hard it is to not only get to the league, the championship sprint and get up there, but Donny, like when you are in the mix for something like this, I don't want to say, does it get old? But like, have you changed anything, based on winning the whole thing and then coming close, but not winning it, and now being in the mix again? Donny, have you and Brady modified the way that you draft, the way that you bid, the way that you start lineups at all over the course of the last few years?
Not too much. I think you adjust to like your drafts based off of the current landscape, I think, of the NFL. So back when we won it, the landscape was wide receivers were scoring a lot of points and heavily outproducing running back counterparts. So we wanted to build teams that were heavy at the wide receiver position and kind of forego the running back, or at least the RB2 just kind of squeak by. And it feels like 4 or 5 years later, that's kind of shifted a bit. And we sort of lean more into the fact that like running backs are actually outscoring receivers, and maybe it might just be luck, but we're on year 2 now of just kind of like unprecedented running back staying healthy. So I think there's a lot of change there that has shifted our draft process a little bit, but otherwise still the process that we have overall still stays the same. We're still drafting kind of lots of rookies and high upside guys, kind of building building teams focused on both the first half of the year and the back half of the year, but just sort of what positions you changed kind of changes.
Oh, Brady, Donny, that's interesting. Brady, I want to get your thoughts on this, because I think by and large over the last 10 years or so, just pick a random year, I feel like wide receivers, tight ends, especially obviously in the FFPC, there's been this huge impetus on getting these guys early, not only because they score a lot of points, but because they're not really exposed to the same injury issues that running backs are exposed to over the course of a season in a high stakes league. The fact that Donny says, like, maybe you guys have taken advantage of hopping on these running backs. And I know in 2024, it paid off, right? Anybody who invested in running backs early that bet on them staying healthy for the majority of the season, more often than not, won a lot of money last year. And I feel like you guys have done this year. Is it a market inefficiency, Brady, that you think you've kind of exposed here while everybody else is zigging with the receivers and tight ends? You guys are zagging and taking advantage of the Christian McCaffreys, the Jonathan Taylors, all these other running backs that have been drafted highly that have stayed healthy and are now on poise, or they're poised to help their fantasy owners win, $4, $5, $6, $7 million or 7-figure grand prizes this year.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a market inefficiency. It's more just we've done a lot better from when we started to now of just taking what the room gives you. So if a bunch of wide receivers are flying up the board, and as a ship chasing guys call it a wide receiver avalanche, and you let guys like Jonathan Taylor fall too, like we got him in the early of the third round on our team that's doing well, like you just kind of have to click and not take your medicine because it's good medicine, but and it also doesn't hurt that for us, we like targeting middle to late tight ends that we think could pop, and our favorite prototype are rookie wide receivers. Like that's been a problem, a gift and a curse for us over the years. So if you pepper running backs early, the workhorse type guys, and you take your wide receiver rookie darts late, that's been a strategy that has worked for us. And you want to win weeks 15 to 17 more than you want to win week 1, for example.
Right. Yeah. And I'm with you, Donny. I want to talk about the rookie receivers you guys have invested in. I've brought this up on the FFPC family of podcasts, pretty much all season. And when we think about rookie wide receivers, if you can grin and bear it through the first 8, 9, 10 weeks of the season, these guys are usually hitting their stride week 12, week 13, 14, and so on and so forth. Who are some of the receivers, the rookie receivers, Donny, that you guys are banking on this year?
I think we have a lot of Luther Burden, getting him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. It kind of almost got to the point where towards the end of the draft season, we had to stop taking him because it was just we had to mix in other guys, right? We had to mix in Jaden Higgins and guys like that who didn't really work out. But at the time, you didn't want to be left with none of those guys. We have a lot of Tet McMillan. We were taking him in the 4th, 5th round whenever he was available. We had a lot of Travis Hunter who didn't work out just because of injury, and it was certainly looking like he was getting ready to kind of have his breakout before he busted his knee up. But yeah, those are kind of the 3 guys that we have that we're kind of banking on across our portfolio of teams over the course of the next 6-7 weeks here.
I want to talk about Luther Burden here for a second. Brady, I'm gonna send this to you. I was sitting in my office today that I share with FFPC co-founder Dave the Dizzle Gerzak, which correct me if I'm wrong. Was Dave on the podcast with you last time you guys were on? Was it Farrell? I can't remember.
We had Farrell.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Dave and I play in a bunch of private leagues together, and he was in work today, and just we're doing whatever. And all of a sudden, he breaks the silence and he just says, God, DJ Moore sucks. And, he must have been looking at his teams or whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. He's and I said, it's kind of nice Luther Burden is starting to come on. And because we have Luther Burden in a bunch of leagues in the KFFSC and other leagues like that we singularly own or whatever. And he said, well, I wish if Luther Burden was coming on, I wish he was coming on more than what he is right now. And to his point, I will say that DJ Moore had 3 targets this past week. He catches 1 for 18 yards. Burden is second on the team in targets against the Vikings. He catches 3 of them for 27 yards. Maybe I misspoke, Brady, when I said he's coming on, but I think he's starting to trend in the right direction. An explosive rookie that we thought, would struggle to make his impact early on in the season. He was dealing with injuries and so on and so forth. Now he's healthy. He's getting the snaps. We know what the Bears invested in him from an NFL draft standpoint. So, Brady, here's the question. What kind of an impact for fantasy purposes is Luther Burden going to make for this remainder, of the last month and a half of the season here?
Yeah, so as you're saying, last week we finally saw what we've been hoping on, and a lot of the fantasy community has, that Burden finally won the wide receiver 3 job and the primary slot position. He ran 100% of the snaps in 3 wide receiver sets, took it from Zacchaeus, who I think was down around like 17. He also was playing in 1 and 2 wide receiver sets as well. I think he ran around 60-ish% of dropbacks, but Chicago also ran fewer 3 wide receiver sets than they have all year. So if that regresses back to the mean, it's going to be more opportunity for Burden. Obviously, DJ Moore is more just of a nuisance being there, but I think it's encouraging that Burden last week had a 24% first read share, only behind Rome. And, one thing about Ben Johnson, I think he had a quote this week, he doesn't like 50-50 balls. He likes to draw up plays to get his guys open. And we've seen with Burden that they are drawing and up and designing plays specifically for him. And he's been very efficient with those opportunities. If the breakout's taken a little longer, and, don't know if he'll fully break out, but I think Amon, his rookie year, is maybe around this time, week 13, 14, 15. And I remember around playoff time, same point. At that time, Ben Johnson was the pass game coordinator for Detroit. So maybe I'm wish casting, but hopefully it's sort of the same for Luther Burden. I mean, I think I probably need to see another game or two, but I think there's definitely a path for him to smash the remainder of the year and win people a lot of money.
In the same way that I don't like to drop running backs, especially the injury away type running backs, because I know that these guys can be roster cloggers for 3 months, but then they could be league winners in December. I kind of put Luther Burden in that similar category, right? Because I know the potential he has. I know, at least I believe in Ben Johnson's talent as a head coach and as a play caller. I believe in Caleb Williams' talent as a quarterback. And when you mix all those things together, I start to see the ways that Luther Burden could be that magical 3rd pass catcher or 4th pass catcher on your team in December, where all of a sudden he spikes a 7 for 130 and 2 touchdowns, and nobody else has him, right? Because who else would keep Burden on their roster this long? So if you can afford to do it, hopefully you can reap the results in December. Now, let's shift the conversation from wide receiver to quarterback here. And Donny, I'll be honest with you, I did not look heavily into all the quarterback matchups this week. I do know that I'm excited for all my teams that I have Drake May in week 12 going against the Bengals. And I think it's an important thing to bring up here as we head into week 12, because Drake May was not drafted as a starting quarterback in a lot of leagues, right? He was drafted as a backup. It depended upon when you drafted. Obviously, maybe if you drafted late, you waited on quarterback and you ended up getting him as your starter, what have you. But I think some hard discussions have to be held here, right? As we look at week 12, when there's a lot of money on the table, and each week the starting lineup decisions get magnified more and more. Do we start Drake May over Caleb Williams, over Jared Goff, over Patrick Mahomes, over Jalen Hurts, over Lamar Jackson? Like, these are all things that we need to consider in week 12. So my question to you, Donny, let's hear the list from you. What quarterbacks should be started over Drake May in week 12 in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think this is kind of I don't know if this is a crazy opinion or not, but I think he's one. I think if you take a look at all of the other quarterback matchups, so you have Drake May just in a perfect spot against Cincinnati. That defense is atrocious. They like Hendrickson's not going to play. Shamar Stewart just got put on IR. They can't cover anyone. Their linebackers are terrible. And I think they have like a 30-point team total or something crazy like that. It's like they're in a perfect spot, and he leads the league in passing this year. And he's doing it with kind of Diggs and kind of like a motley crew of receivers around him. So I think that like the other quarterbacks that are in contention, obviously you have Lamar against the Jets. That's a little bit of a worry for sure. I think, that'd be tough to sit Lamar against the Jets, who also have a 30-point team total, but he's not really playing that well. And I think he's still kind of nursing a hamstring injury. Brady and I both are watching the Ravens closely. It seems like he's not running as much. They're using Derrick Henry in the red zone around the goal line, so he's not getting those rushing touchdowns. And I think like Josh Allen had a great week last week. Looks good, but Thursday night football going against the Texans. Texans are a pretty good defense. I don't know if he has the same ceiling that May does against the Bengals.
I just looked at it right now. DraftKings odds currently has May as plus 185 to win MVP. Stafford, the shortest odds of anybody, 135. But then after May at 185, it drops off to the aforementioned Josh Allen at 475. When you look at quarterbacks this week, I think I'm with you that May's got to be started over everybody. I don't care who else you have. I'm glad you bring up the hamstring injury. I was talking with another person today about the Ravens, and he's of the belief that Jackson is hiding a hamstring injury. He had his worst fantasy game in his career with at least 20 pass attempts against Cleveland this past week. And I don't think it's just an accident that it was against a really tough Browns defense. I think there is something there. And I think we need to be paying attention to that going forward. As you said, you and Brady are for sure. But yeah, wheels up for May this week. Honestly, when I'm looking at to start quarterbacks in my lineup, if the question I'm asking myself, well, what if they stop running, or what if they stop throwing early in the second half because they're up by too much? I usually say, okay, that's the quarterback I want to start. Like I'll deal with that. If that problem happens, it happens.
Yeah, that means they have like 3-4 touchdowns. And
right.
Yeah,
exactly. And hopefully, given the majority of my teams, hopefully it's all Drake May. It's 3 passing touchdowns from May to Trevion Henderson. And I definitely 100% am wish casting on that.
We'll sign up for
that. All right, move to tight end. A guy who's in no danger of winning MVP this year is Isaiah. I have him on a couple of non-tight end premium leagues right now, guys, and I have not dropped him. And I'm not going to reveal why, because I honestly want to ask you, Brady, about this. He gets the Jets this week, who obviously traded Sauce Gardner. They traded Quinnen Williams. The defense is not what it used to be, although they did have a decent showing last week without those 2 players. When you consider tight end premium leagues like the FFPC, Brady, what is your case for keeping Likely around, knowing that he's dealing in an offense that maybe is a little bit hamstrung from the passing standpoint because of Lamar Jackson's hamstring and because of Derrick Henry's wherewithal that he's been able to get it done. And you also have Mark Andrews on this team. For people who are looking for upside plays and cutting their dead weight on their team, looking for the injury away type running backs or, injury away type tight ends, maybe that's Isaiah Likely. I don't know how you feel about it. But Brady, for FFPC players, why should or shouldn't they be keeping Isaiah Likely on their teams going forward?
Well, you just sort of said it. The main case to keep Isaiah Likely on your team is he's probably the number 1 pick for a tight end handcuff, as you could say. If to keep him on your roster, unless you need the space in a tight end premium league, part A of the reason is because the waiver wire at this point in the season is so barren and it's a wasteland and there's not really other options. And B, it's all his contingent upside if Mark Andrews is to go down. We're both Ravens fans, as Donny mentioned. So we've seen a lot of Isaiah Likely. We've seen him do it when Andrews is out. We've seen him do it week 1 last year on Thursday night kickoff, where I believe Andrews was playing in that game, but I can't remember, but he still went nuts. So we know it's in there. The Ravens clearly love him. I mean, there's already reports circulating that that's who they want to use their franchise tag on this offseason. So the case for keeping him is simply just because, if Andrews went down tomorrow, most teams in FFPC would spend the remaining fab on picking up likely. So when in FFPC, when they cut off your waivers and stuff, you're going to want some sort of smash upside type guy like that in the case of an injury. Now, I wouldn't start him unless something like that happens, but that is the reason for keeping him on your rosters.
Yeah, he's an injury away type guy, which I think makes perfect sense. It's rare that we see it as far as a non-running back position, but I think it definitely applies here with tight end. Speaking of those running backs here, Trevion Henderson, wow. What a performance last week. It was unbelievable. It was what we have been waiting for all season. No Antonio Gibson, no Ramondre Stevenson. It was Trevion Henderson or bust, and it was Trevion Henderson for 3 touchdowns on Thursday Night Football. Unbelievable stuff. Donny, the fly in the ointment, right? The monkey in the wrench, as John McClane from Die Hard would say, is Ramondre Stevenson's return. We found out that Mike Vrabel said yesterday that he expects Stevenson to be out on the practice field on Wednesday. Now, we can't put the toothpaste in the back in the tube. We can't recork the wine. Everybody saw what Trevion Henderson is capable of this past week. However, we do know Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels' love affair with Ramondre Stevenson, and maybe their stronger love affair is anybody not named, beg your pardon, Trevion Henderson. So I think about that when I consider what I'm doing with Henderson. Is he simply just a slam dunk start, even if Stevenson is back this week? Or if Stevenson is active for this game, is this more of a nuanced decision that we just can't auto click Henderson based on what we've seen for the previous 2.5 months of the season?
Yeah, I think in the short term, you got to play him. I think that most honestly, even if Ramondre comes back and he takes over the bulk of the work, like the Bengals are awful against the run. Like if you look at, I think the last 3 weeks or 3 games they've played, they've I think averaged like over 200 rushing yards allowed. They gave up like 270 rushing yards to the Jets. They gave up 250 to the Bears, 180 to Kyle Monangai. And then even last week, they only gave up like 110, 115, but Gainwell went nuts out of the backfield, went like 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. So like this week, you got to play him. It doesn't matter if Ramondre comes back. And then next week, you get the Giants, who have an awful run defense as well. So I think it's long-term over the course of the rest of the season. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think they're going to have Henderson's going to have every opportunity to run away with it. He looks awesome. You can kind of see it over the last couple of games, like him, I think like getting better. It kind of reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs, his rookie season, where it was a lot of like running into the backs of offensive linemen and stuff and kind of just getting tackled at the line of scrimmage. And you watch that game against the Jets last Thursday, and he was making inside moves, inside cuts, kind of comfortable and patient, like running through the middle. And then you get all the pass catching stuff and outside runs and stuff in the explosive plays. So he's going to have every opportunity. I think that Vrabel is kind of the fly in the ointment a little bit. If it were up to us, he would just go away. I think he still might get goal line carries. But I don't know, like Henderson looked good on the goal line this past week and getting those touches. So even if he keeps a fraction or a small share of those, I think he's going to be valuable with all the other stuff he does.
Henderson's looking very good. The Patriots as a team are looking very good. The number 2 seed in the AFC, if the playoffs started today, obviously they don't want a running back in there that's going to allow Drake May to get jacked up. But I think you can see that his, not only his fantasy numbers have been getting better, his pass pro has been getting better. I don't know if it's slowed down for him. I haven't read any articles on Trevion Henderson being interviewed about how he has taken a step forward where he has the opportunity to even score 5 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but certainly something has clicked there. The proverbial light bulb has turned on, and this could be a big Henderson performance for the remainder of the season. So if you were lucky enough to soak an early round pick into Trevion Henderson, and that team has made it to the thick of it, could be wheels up for your squad going forward.
Yeah, I think like if you drafted Henderson, this is the reason why. The second of the year, this is the reason why. So play him.
And you mentioned the rookie receivers. Same thing could be said for some rookie running backs here too, where they turn it on Donny at the end of the year.
Exactly.
Brady, the another rookie running back I want to ask you about is a running back. I thought we were done talking about Bechel too. I thought it was over with him. I thought this was a redshirt year. It was Travis Etienne, and we wouldn't hear much from Tootin. Then Tank Bigsby got traded to Philadelphia. And then we saw this past week, week 11, where Tootin really turned it on, probably had his best game of the season, right? Now, he did get hurt in this game. The latest I've seen on this is it was an ankle injury that caused him to leave in the fourth quarter, perhaps a high ankle sprain. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I wish I would have more information on this. Maybe it's out there and I just haven't seen it, but I have not seen anything yet. They have Arizona this week. And if Tootin is healthy enough to play, I wonder if that kind of gums up the works for people who are planning on playing Travis Etienne this week. Because if Tootin is out there sharing not only catches and targets, but also rushing attempts, that can kind of make Etienne maybe not the greatest play in the world. Or conversely, you could say Arizona's rush defense, not the greatest defense in the world, not the greatest wall to running backs having successful fantasy games. Maybe the case is here that you could play Tootin and Etienne on the leagues that you have him in. How do you fall in on this now that we've seen sort of a mini ascendance from Bechel Tootin in the middle of the season here?
I would say you can play them both. Last week it would have worked. It seems like Liam Cohen really has their running backs and their run schemes humming right now. I'm a big Bechel Tootin guy. Drafted a lot of him before the season. Drafted none of Travis Etienne because I always thought that Tootin was going to take over. Now I thought it would happen around like week 3, week 4, because I'm not an Etienne believer. But I do happen to have Etienne on one home league that I took out of necessity, and he's actually turned out to be quite the pick. So I believe until they fully assert that one of them is the main guy, that you can probably trot them both out there, depending on who else you have on your team. But and what your other options are. But I would say for this week, you can definitely start them both if Tootin ends up suiting up. And obviously, if he's out, it's wheels up for Etienne.
Yeah, wheels up. Exactly. Now, Tootin had 15 for 74. Etienne had 19 for 73 this past week. Neither one of them caught a pass, and both of them scored touchdowns. Etienne scored another touchdown. The only other thing I'll bring up, Brady, and you let me know what you're concerned about LaQuint Allen, who, again, did not catch a pass this past week for Jacksonville. But after the injury, he did see more work in the fourth quarter. He ends up with 8 carries for 36 yards. If Tootin is out, is it still wheels up for Etienne, or do you worry about LaQuint Allen a little bit?
I don't worry about LaQuint Allen that much. I mean, I'm sure he'll give Etienne a spell here and there, but that would give me zero hesitation on starting Etienne. I think Tootin is the main threat to Etienne's workload.
Yeah, and that game was a blowout too.
Yeah.
So they had LaQuint Allen in the fourth quarter. They were up by 3 touchdowns. Yeah, not too. I don't think I'm too concerned about him either.
21-6 heading into the fourth quarter, and then Jacksonville tacks on 2 more touchdowns. Yeah. So good point on that, Donny. You agree with Brady on his assertion of how to handle the Jaguars running backs this week?
Yeah, I think so. Tootin looks awesome. He looks so good, but I don't think Etienne's going anywhere. If you go back and watch that game, it was like they were literally rotating mid-drive and just the entire game up until Tootin got hurt. So, they could go with a hot hand approach, or Tootin could take it, but Etienne looks good too. And I think that he's in a contract year. They're probably going to end up running him into the ground unless Tootin continues to take another step. But I think where we stand now, it's good for both of them. And I think both are playable, but I think you probably really need an injury in order to fully see the league winning upside out of either one of them, I think.
We have I mean, this is a kind of a quasi fantasy question, more of an NFL question from our guy Corey Walters here on YouTube. What is your guys' opinion on Burrow? Why would he come back if they are not in playoff hunt, which seems to be the case? Donnie, I'm going to pitch this to you and get your thoughts on this. If we look at the playoffs right now, as how it stands in the AFC, the Bengals are 3-7. They're third in the AFC North. They technically would be the 12 seed right now. Now, the final team in is the Jaguars, who are 6-4. So you're looking at 3 games behind, right, with essentially 7 games to go. So it's possible, and Burrow's going to try to come back for Thanksgiving. Now, I think that like from a fantasy standpoint, if you have Burrow, keep holding on to him. FFPC, you can't pick him up, obviously. But if you're in another league where you can pick him up, you pick him up to see what happens, especially if you're in like a closed 12-team private league or whatever, where he's available. Donnie, do you believe that the Bengals are still in the playoff hunt? And if, regardless of how you feel about that, do you think that the Bengals would keep Burrow playing throughout the remainder of the season, even if they start to lose games here, even when he's under center starting Thanksgiving against Baltimore, right? They play Baltimore on Thanksgiving?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the easy answer why he would come back, screw over the Ravens. But
so ruin our Thanksgiving.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think like should he come back? Probably not. I think they're out of it. They're super far back. Like I said earlier, that defense is terrible. They can't stop anybody. There's no way they're gonna even if Burrow comes back, they're going to be in tons of shootouts and lose more games than they win. But I think that's a reason to hold Burrow if he does come back. I think like him and Chase could put up like monster numbers towards the end of the stretch here. But I don't know. I think Burrow has a little bit of a competitive streak to him. I think ultimately it could be up to him if he's ready to come back. But certainly if I were in charge of the Bengals, I would let him sit out for the year. But we know that team's kind of dysfunctional. So who knows what they end up doing.
It's always the message that you're sending to the other guys in the locker room too, and I think they have the luxury of Joe Flacco being a pretty talented quarterback. But at the same time, I know how much these guys have played with Joe Flacco. They believe in Joe Burrow, and they believe in Joe Burrow. They want to see him back on the field. Sometimes I think the smartest decision isn't always the easiest decision to make. And I'm just glad I'm not, Zach Taylor or, anybody in the Bengals front office who has to make this decision here.
Yeah.
Brady, do you and Donnie, do you guys play? Are all your FFPC leagues you play together, or do you play some separately too?
We play some separately. So I have 3 main event solos, and I have 8 co-owned. Some with Donnie, some with other friends. We do a couple with one of our other buddies, us 3. But yeah, we do a good mix.
Okay. Now, do you guys in that mix? Do you guys play any dynasty at all, or is this solely redraft?
On FFPC, it's solely redraft.
Okay.
I have a few dynasty leagues that are not FFPC, but I would not be against an FFPC format because I love tight end premium.
I'm not fishing for an FFPC dynasty compliment here, so don't feel like
I'm in a tight end premium. One
right.
A friend set up at home, but
yeah. Now I only bring this up, Brady, because I think there are people, maybe myself included, who utilized the 101 in some rookie drafts last year on Ashton Genty. And based on the return on investment, a lot of those people are nervous. I shouldn't say a lot of them. Some of those people are probably nervous right now. Some of those people are thinking, hey, did I just botch the 101 by taking Ashton Genty? When you look at what Genty has done, or maybe a better way to put it is what he has not been able to do this year from a fantasy standpoint, Brady, is it just offensive line play? Is it the offense? Is it other factors? Or is it Genty himself? What's your level of concern about Ashton Genty being an NFL bust at this point of his career? I know he's a rookie. It's probably unfair to label him one way or the other at this point, but we have 11 weeks of fantasy football play in with Genty. What's your sort of scouting report of what you've seen so far for him, the Boise State product, now at the professional football level?
Yeah, I'm pretty inclined to believe that it is mostly not Ashton Genty's fault. The offensive line has just been horrendous. The organization did exactly what you expect bad organizations to do, and that's not put your players in the chance to succeed. You know, they drafted the running back before they had the offensive line, which never works.
Right.
Genty is forced to miss tackle at a top 5 rate of all NFL running backs, but he has been stuffed for a loss or no gain at the second highest rate of all NFL running backs, just under 20%. That to me supports that what I see on tape and Twitter clips, that whenever he touches the ball 5 yards in the backfield, there's always somebody in his face. If he breaks a tackle as soon as he gets the ball, it's basically best case scenario that he is just lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage. So I think it is mostly the line's fault. With that being said, he could honestly be a bust, but you know, the line and the coaches haven't really given us a chance to find out. You know, last night, the Raiders played the Cowboys, who are top 5 or bottom 5 run defense, and they decided to give him 2 carries in the first half. They let Geno Smith drop back 90% of the time in the first half, which is only the second team this decade to throw the ball or have a design run less than 10% of the time in the first half. So that shows me the coaches either recognize how bad the line is, or they sadly don't recognize how bad Geno Smith is. So, you know, he could end up being a bust by a product of his situation. If it ever gets better, I think we'll see the prospect that everyone loved, but I definitely don't see that happen anytime this year, and I wouldn't think it would happen next year. So if I draft him at the 101 and I get a good offer, I would probably very much consider taking it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, and I've always said too, like, with offensive lines in the NFL, sometimes I think there's too much of an impetus, there's too much of an emphasis put on the talent on the offensive line. Sometimes I think like the best offensive lines are just 5 guys that really work together well. Maybe not the most talented guys in the world, but if they have good chemistry, if they have good communication, you can really churn out some really good offensive line play with mediocre to above average talents as long as they gel. And I don't see a gelling happening over the course of 1 year in Las Vegas, even if they were able to, you know, sign a guard or draft a tackle or anything like that. So it might get, I don't want to say it might get worse for Genty before it gets better, but it might not get better before it gets better, if that makes any sense.
I think that whole organization and team is in big trouble for the foreseeable future.
It's wild because, you know, they hired Pete Carroll and they traded for Geno Smith, which to me was the sounding call of, hey, we're going to win and we want to win now. And clearly that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So now what do you do, right? I mean, do you let Pete Carroll hang around and try to build this thing up? What do you do at quarterback? Do you let Geno Smith try to, you know, work through his issues and try to figure? I don't know. And once again, I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions because the pressure is on with what you've utilized in draft capital for Ashton Genty, what you have in Brock Bowers, right? Like there's some talent there and there's expected return on this talent. Hasn't necessarily happened and translated into wins just yet. From one GM in John Spytek in Las Vegas, who just got hired, to another GM who I can't believe hasn't been fired yet, Joe Shane in New York. This is wild to see him keep his job. Brian Daboll loses a job. It was the first week with Mike Kafka as the interim head coach for the Giants. And against Green Bay, we saw kind of a split workload here between Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. Tracy gets 19 carries for 88 yards, Singletary 16 for 44, so about half the production, but he does get into the end zone twice. Tyrone Tracy also 4 catches for 51 yards. Singletary 1 catch for 3 yards. Donny, the Giants are taking on the Detroit Lions this coming Sunday, who I believe is maybe a more stout rush defense. I don't know what the numbers are on this. But if you are of the opinion that, like, okay, I need a flex here, or I need an RB2 that's going to give me some sort of punch on my roster that I can make this playoff push, Are Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary startable? Is it just Tracy? How do you, or is it neither one with these Giants heading into against the Lions in Week 12?
Yeah, I think the right answer is neither. I think hopefully you have someone better, but I think that if you're in a pinch, and I know Brady and I have a couple teams where we're in a spot where we have Tyrone Tracy, and we're starting him this week because we don't have any better options. He looked decent last week. I think he ran the ball kind of well, and like you said, the Packers have a pretty stout rush defense. So I thought he looked okay. Now they're 10-point dogs against the Lions here, so the expectations have to be super low, and he's not getting any of the goal line work. That's all going to Singletary. So I don't think he has a super high ceiling for touchdowns, but I think just with the passing game work he gets out of the backfield and just some of like the rushing efficiency he has, I think you could do worse than him. I don't think I would play Singletary. I think he ran the ball 16 times. Is that what you said?
Tracy had 19 for 88.
Yeah.
And so I beg your pardon. Singletary 16 for 44. 16.
Yeah. I don't like. He's not going to get 16 carries again against the Lions as that big of a dog. There's no way. So I think you're basically hoping he falls into the end zone and gets you 9 points and you move on for the week. So I guess it could be worse, but that's not the kind of plays that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's one of those things I always wish like one of these guys would they're nursing an injury, right? And I don't want to have to deal with both these guys in the backfield, which, I mean, honestly, sometimes can make the decision easy, right? As you pointed out, the optimal strategy is not playing either one of these guys. And if you have to play one, Donnie, I think I'm with you. I think it is Tyrone Tracy here in Week 12 over Devin Singletary. Now, Todd on YouTube right now, he has a Sean Tucker question. And I have this phrase this week because I think this is really compelling stuff and might decide if you make your playoffs or not. I'm going to throw this to you, Brady. If Bucky Irving is active, who practiced in a limited capacity all 3 days last week, ultimately was not taken off. He's not even on IR, which is another bizarre conversation we can get into. But he was not active this past week. If he is active this week against the Rams, do you simply just plug him in there? Can you still flex out Sean Tucker? Is it a timeshare where both of these guys are startable here? Brady, this is kind of the same question I asked Donnie just now about the Giants backfield, but now you have sort of like more of a higher volume, more of an electric backfield here in Tampa, more of an electric offense here. Well, how do you feel about Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker if they're both active this week?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what your other options are. Bucky is a second-round pick. Do I think this week if he comes back, is he a set it and forget it? If he's healthy, no. The Rams are a brutal matchup for running backs, and obviously Bucky has been out for 2 months now. I don't think they would put him back out there unless he's actually good to go, especially given their playoff aspirations and wouldn't want to get him banged up. But I don't really foresee him coming back right away and being the unquestioned workhorse immediately. I do think it will be a bit of a timeshare moving forward, and probably as the weeks progress and Bucky gets healthier, it'll probably trend more just to Bucky. But I do think Tucker is probably going to see a lot of run. I would think that all of his snaps would likely come at the expense of Rachaad White instead of Bucky Irving. So I think my answer is, depends on your options. If Bucky plays this week, I don't feel comfortable starting either of them unless, that's sort of what you're stuck with. If Bucky's out, I would probably fire up Sean Tucker.
Yeah, and we got Steve Urgalos chiming in tonight. I actually think Todd Bowles is almost as dumb as Mike Vrabel. He should have used Sean Tucker weeks ago, similar to Trevion Henderson's use. Yeah, and I don't know if Mike Vrabel is facing those questions from the media. Probably not, because Henderson, it's not like he was, unbelievable in the early part of the season, but when he showed out last week, there's really it's tough to go away from using Henderson at this point. Brady, final question on this on the Tampa ground game. Given Sean Tucker's resurgence, given if you drop a player, you can't pick him back up. Are you fine with dropping Rachaad White in your leagues right now? I don't even know if you have him in any. But
I don't have any of them, but Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I wouldn't drop him for just a random dart that
Right.
you have no like you need 2 injuries or like. But yeah, if there's a better option out there, you think I personally don't have a problem cutting Rashad White.
I want to shift the conversation to wide receivers in Denver. Donnie, if you look at the numbers between Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin, I think it's over the last 4 weeks. They are very similar. If anything, Franklin has the better numbers. Maybe I'm overstepping when I say this. Is Troy Franklin actually the new number 1 in Denver? You know, you think about his relationship with Bo Nix that predates their professional careers, you know, at the University of Oregon. Is Troy Franklin actually the guy in Denver now? And if that's the case, I mean, we should probably be breaking ties in favor of starting Franklin as our flex, right? As opposed to against. I don't know how you feel about the number 1 versus number 2 wide receiver conversation in Denver. Maybe it's not as close as I think it is, but I think it's pretty close right now.
I think it's really close. Yeah, I think, like you said, if you look at the numbers over last month, I think Franklin's out targeting Sutton. He's out producing Sutton. I think he's like top 10 in the last month in end zone targets, which given kind of his skill set, I think that's directly taking away from Cortland Sutton and what he's good at. So that offense is weird. I think that like Sean Payton likes to run a lot of like schemed up plays, kind of like Ben Johnson-y, where like guys like Troy Franklin get schemed up the ball, but also it seems like it's very inconsistent week to week as well. So I don't know if I would say that Franklin is like the de facto number 1 and is taking over Cortland Sutton. I think Sutton still probably will have opportunities to get his as well, but it's certainly I think a 1A, 1B situation. And you see, like you said, with Bo Nix and his trust in Troy Franklin, that long pass they had to beat the Chiefs with under a minute left. He was looking for him downfield first read and saw him wide open and hit him. So they definitely have a rapport, I think, that hopefully they can build on, because I have them on a couple teams and we can put them in our lineup for the last couple of weeks here. But yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes, and I think he's certainly probably a better play than Sutton at this point.
You know, it's frustrating for me, and yes, I know nobody cares about your fantasy team, but I'll bring this up right now. So we had the opportunity, or at least I had the opportunity, to pick up Troy Franklin in not only a lot of redraft leagues, but some dynasty leagues as well. I don't think I have him anywhere and I have like more than 3 dozen teams this year. I don't think I might have him on a couple of best balls that I drafted. I don't think I have him anywhere, which is super frustrating, because you're talking about the team that is the number 1 seed in the AFC right now, with a young up and coming quarterback, a wide receiver who granted did get paid by the team, but Franklin seems to be, you know, it wasn't that long. I'm old enough to remember when we were talking about Franklin versus Mims for the number 2 receiver on this team and how relevant it was for fantasy. Now we're talking about Franklin being the number 1 receiver in Denver, which is it's crazy to think about. Guys, we have not talked about the waiver wire, and I want to close tonight's show on that. Brady, I'm going to throw this to you first. I think it's fine if you guys duplicate on any players here, because we had mentioned, I can't remember which one of you guys mentioned earlier, waiver wire is pretty barren at this point of the year. And even the players that are available, a lot of them can't be picked back up in the FFPC Main Event, the FFPC Big Gorilla. But if there was a player that you are targeting on the waiver wire, Brady, who would it be? And then a player that you're ready to say, you know, we just talked about Rashad White, a player that you're ready to say goodnight to. Not that you're going to cut for just any random player, but if there's a better option out there, you're cool with giving up this guy for the season. So Brady, give me your must get, your must give up, and then Donnie, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I mean, the waiver wire at this point, if you're looking like you're going to be a league playoff or a potential shootout team, I'm just making sure I have all my holes filled on the bench. Make sure you got a backup quarterback, you know, just in case, because you can't pick anybody up once it starts. And if somebody goes down and you can't fill a slot, that's going to kill you. I will say that, you know, assuming Emmanuel Wilson types are all owned, which it seemed to me, I would say if you're looking for a weekly spot start this week with the Dolphins, Broncos, Chargers, and Commanders on bye, I think I would be looking at Andre Yoshivas. I think he's available in around 65% of FFPC leagues, with Jamar Chase getting suspended for spitting on Jalen Ramsey, T. Higgins likely seeing a majority of the coverage from Christian Gonzalez, and Raven legend Joe Flacco just letting it rip. I think Yoshivas has elite. Yeah. I think he has spike week potential this week. Obviously, it's probably just a 1 week runoff, but yeah, that's probably who I would say I would target if I need a spot start. Players I'm ready to give up on. I don't know.
Just real quick, Brady, before you get into that, I want to make sure I mention this before I forget about it. You guys will appreciate this. Back in the day, every time I won a fantasy league, I would buy a jersey of one of the players on that team. I have a Joe Flacco jersey with the art Modell patch on it or whatever, like the number 9 Ravens. I probably haven't worn it in about 15 years, but I still have it. So one of these, I'm going to have to bust it out at some point because it is a pretty cool jersey. When you consider
you should frame it.
In general, they're pretty cool, but with the art patch on it, it's pretty nice. Anyway,
you should frame it and add it to your wall.
Right. I may have to do that.
Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco.
As long as he does not win an MVP, Super Bowl MVP with the Browns this year, I will hold it up in high regard with Joe Flacco winning the Super Bowl MVP with Baltimore.
Yeah, but as far as players I'm ready to give up on, it's all subjective based off your circumstances. The 2 guys I'm ready to give up on, they're probably not droppable. One of them is Xavier Worthy. I'm very concerned about him. It seems like with Rashee Rice back in the picture that he's unstartable and, his numbers are continually trending downward. And the other one I'm ready to give up on, and maybe this is wish casting per our Luther Burden shares, but I am done with DJ Moore.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Donnie, before you get into yours, we do have a question in the chat. Joe King wants to know, is Noah Fant viable as far as a starter this week against New England? You had just talked about this, Brady, about, probably no Jamar Chase this week, Higgins drawing Christian Gonzalez. Maybe it's Yoshivas this week. Maybe Noah Fant is a guy that we may want to look at in tight end premium leagues. Brady, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I think if you're desperate and the options aren't great, the alternatives, I think Gadsden's on a bye, Ertz is on a bye. And yeah, I think those are the main 2 you're missing. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's worth a dart throw. It's one of those that you trot them out there and you expect nothing and just hope for the best. And then, when they hit, it's even better. But yeah, there are worse options than that, I would definitely say. So if your gut's telling you something, I would just rip it.
Donnie, do you feel the same way about Fant as Brady does? Yeah, I think so. And especially, like you mentioned, Higgins is going to be drawing Christian Gonzalez, who over the past couple of months has just locked everybody down. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for some of these secondary guys on Cincinnati, like Fant, like Yoshivas, to step up. It probably not world beaters, I don't think. Probably not eruption spots. I know like New England has a pretty good defense, but if you need a spot start for a week, you're trotting out guys like Jonnu Smith or like Evan Ingram. I have a couple of those teams that are holding on for dear life. Fant's not a bad spot start while you figure out tight end elsewhere.
And correct me if I'm wrong too. Denver's on bye this week. So if you are missing, you will not have Ingram this week. You won't even have the opportunity to play him. So yeah, then that makes sense with Fant, as you're saying, Donnie. Good point there. Your 2 guys, a guy that you're looking at targeting on the waiver wire, and a guy that that you're ready to give up on in favor of an upside play for the remainder of the season here.
Yeah, so I'm cheating a little bit. I have 2 guys. I have one guy that is rostered in most leagues I'm in, but
it's true. Yeah. Joe King just chiming in. Evan Ingram's been on bye.
That's true.
Yeah. Hilarious stuff. Very funny. Come for the joke, stay for the fantasy analysis.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, so I think guy that's rostered in most leagues, but I think is starting to have his utilization trend up a little bit is Keaton Mitchell. I think coming down the stretch here, he looks good. He's explosive. I think he got 8 touches, which it isn't a world beater by any means, but I think that he's starting to come on a little bit. I think Harbaugh's starting to trust him a little bit, get him working in the passing game. He caught a couple passes this past week. So I think you could do worse, and you get the contingency upside as well if Henry goes down in that offense. So I think he's a decent pickup if he's available. The other guy is kind of just like a end of the bench stash who I think kind of looks pretty good is Pat Bryant. So speaking of Denver, like we were talking about Sutton and Troy Franklin kind of being neck and neck on targets. I think Pat Bryant had the same number of targets as both of them this past week, and he looks good doing them. All right. So I think just kind of as a end of the bench, he's not startable, but as we start getting into the playoffs, you need a little bit of upside. Could do worse, I think, if Sutton or Franklin go down. As far as guys to cut,
just real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, Donny. Just one point about Pat Bryant here. And as Joe King just pointed out, Evan Engram's been on bye this whole year. Not a lot of great tight end options on this team. If Franklin were to go down, if Sutton were to go down, we know this passing offense can be proficient when it needs to be. Cortland Sutton and Franklin both had 8 targets this past week. Bryant only saw 6. However, Bryant led the team in receiving with 5 catches. Nobody else had more than 4 this past week. So say what you will about Pat Bryant, but he led the team in receiving this past week. Something to keep in mind, especially if one of those other receivers were to go down. Not saying Bryant's a handcuff for either one of these guys, but he is a rookie receiver, and we know what rookie receivers do in the last third of the season. Okay, players that you're looking to move on from, Donny.
Yeah, I don't have any spicy ones like Xavier Worthy, but I think Matthew Golden is a guy that I'm ready to get rid of. And I was probably ready to get rid of him a while ago, but you give him a chance, come back from injury. He still doesn't have it. And it kind of lines up just like there's been concerns about him since he got drafted around like his production profile and stuff like that coming out of college. And I haven't seen anything from him to think that he can be a producer this year, let alone like in dynasty formats and things like that. So I think if I have Matthew Golden and I need a roster spot for even like a backup defense in the playoffs or something like that, then I'm ready to cut him and move on.
Yeah, I would be too. And the thing is with Golden, when I live in Packers country here in Northeast Wisconsin, when they drafted Matthew Golden, I did not like the pick. I was not a fan of it. There were a lot of rumors here that had the Buccaneers not traded up to draft Emeka Egbuka, that Green Bay was actually going to draft Egbuka, which obviously hindsight's 2020 looks like a much better pick at this point. You know, the thing is with Golden, we heard everything in preseason from all the beat writers and everybody talking up Matthew Golden, saying his hands are unbelievable. His speed is electric. This is a field flipper, which is great. That's what you want to hear. But at the same time, we have not seen those things present themselves in the regular season. And I don't necessarily think it's a Golden issue because if you look at the all 22, and a lot of people have, he's open. Like he is getting open against whoever, you know, if he's playing man coverage, he's open. It's a matter of Jordan Love finding him. But I think it's also a matter of just the Packers offense in general. They just spread it around, which was my main concern about drafting Tucker Kraft or Matthew Golden or Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs, any of these guys. They spread it around so much, it's really difficult to count on any one of these guys on any given week. And then as we head into week 12, to your point, Donny, we haven't really seen a Matthew Golden week yet.
Yeah.
What are we waiting for? You know, and are you going to feel confident playing for $1 million with Matthew Golden in your lineup? Probably not. So maybe it is time to move on, find that injury away type running back, find another guy who could be a difference maker down the stretch. Matthew Golden ain't it, at least for 2025. And just real quick, I know that the Packers have had Romeo Doubs extension talks. which I didn't think was going to happen, but apparently it could happen. And then Christian Watson has already had the 1-year extension next year as well. So even if you look forward to 2026, you got Tucker Kraft coming back from the ACL. You have Christian Watson back there. Dontavian Wicks is still in a contract year. We got Jaden Reed coming back next year as well. Don't forget about him. And then it's like, God, is 2026 even going to be the year of Golden? I'm not so sure. A lot of stuff to unpack here.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, like you said, that wide receiver room is just way too crowded to trust him, and you need to see it for multiple weeks. Real quick, I got a question for you off the cuff.
Fire.
Packers. Is Jaden Reed coming back soon?
Yes.
Okay.
Matt LaFleur, in his Monday presser, was asked if there is going to be a 21-day practice, window opened up this week. And no names were uttered, but I think the two names everybody's focusing on in Green Bay, especially with the Josh Jacobs injury, is Marshawn Lloyd and Jaden Reed. The original timetable for Reed is right around here, week 12. I would not be surprised if we find out that Reed has his 21-day practice window activated this week. I don't know if he comes back this week. And then obviously you're on the short week next week with the Thanksgiving Day against Detroit. But I think Reed is going to be back sooner rather than later. The Lloyd thing is interesting because we know the talent with what he showed in college has not been able to stay on the field. And I think by the time he gets acclimated, Josh Jacobs could be back. So it's probably not, if it's Lloyd that's activated this week, I'm going to be a lot less excited than if it's Jaden Reed that's activated. It could be both of them. It could be both of them. But yes, to answer your question, I do believe the Reed activation is coming up here pretty quick. Good.
Yeah, I know we have them stashed on a couple of teams of ours and a couple of my solo teams as well. That maybe it's I'm glutton for punishment, holding on to these Packers receivers for all year, but he's good. He is the talent, so I never know what could happen in a couple of weeks. Spring.
You know what's sick about it? You said you're a glutton for punishment. I have spent on all these podcasts all season telling people not to draft Packers wide receivers. And then this last waiver period, when I'm playing in the KFFSC and picking up these guys, I must have picked Jaden Reed up in like a half dozen leagues, which not only hurts me because now I have to have an IR guy on my active roster. I don't even know if he's going to be good when he comes back because of how they spread the ball around. But I'm willing to. I said before the season started, if there's one Packers receiver I'm going to count on this year, I'm not saying I'm going to count on any of them, but if I had to count on one of them, it's going to be Jaden Reed. So we'll see what happens with that down the stretch here. My God, guys, well over an hour. You guys have been troopers tonight, exciting us with your expertise, informing us with all of your insight. This has been great tonight. The 2021 Football Guys Players Championship 500K champions, Brady David, Donny Andrews joining me tonight, and 44th overall in the FFPC main event. Guys, it'd be quite the thing for you to, we've had back-to-back winners in the FPC and the main event. We haven't had an overall champ win both of those before. You guys already basically took down the Big Gorilla, which is the new FPC. But if you take down the main event this year, etching your names into high-stakes fantasy football history, it'd be tremendous if you were able to do that. And I'll be damn sure to have you on the show if that happens again. Hopefully you guys have your teams get hot, especially that 44th place team down the stretch. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, Eric. This was a great time.
Yeah, thanks, Balky. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime. Good luck the rest of the way, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
You too. That is Donny Andrews. That is Brady David, the 2021 FPC 500K champs, joining me on the Road of His High Stakes Lowdown tonight. A lot of fun chiming in and getting those guys' input on everything going on with their leagues and the FFPC in general heading into week 12. I want to remind everybody the FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now, both the Thursday and the Sunday contest. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses, and only one player per NFL team. So if you want Jordan Love, you cannot have Christian Watson. If you want to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, you cannot have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Win up to $2,500 in those 10, 30, and 100-team contests. MyFFPC.com, MyFFPC.com is where to go to register for that. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Now, as far as what's going on this week, we will be live again on the FFPC socials as well as the Better Sports Network Thursday night at 7 p.m. Until 9 p.m. So we'll take you through the first quarter plus of the FFP of the NFL game between the Bills and the Texans. That will be going on Thursday night, 7:00. I will be joined by one Stacy Perez from Fantasy and Frames, FFPC Pros versus Joe's competitor. I compete against her in the KFFSC, longtime FFPC player as well. Very excited to have her on. That will be Thursday night from 7 to 9. And then we will have on Friday night, Farrell Elliott rejoins me for the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. And we will have on, I'm trying to find what place he's in right now. I know he's right up there and I can't find it. So my apologies on that. Yeah, I can't find it. I'm sorry. Tommy D, longtime FFPC player who has a team floating around the top of the leaderboard in the FFPC main event. He's going to join me and Farrell at 10 p.m. Eastern on Friday. That's going to be a load of fun getting you set for week 12. The RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, despite the Thanksgiving week next week, we will be live at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Guest TBD. I'm working on that right now. And we'll have a great guest getting you set for those Thanksgiving Day games and week 13 in general, which is a massive week in the FFPC. For Brady David, for Donny Andrews, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Thank you so much for watching, streaming, listening, downloading. We will be back with you again next week at 10 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you again on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern for the FFPC Insider Access show with myself and Stacy Perez. Be good, everybody, and happy bidding on the waiver wire this Wednesday in the FFPC.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.